Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. This one is a double government employee event. And what you should know is if you get the attention of a government employee and make them angry, they will make your life a living hell. Sorry, this is a long one. The setup is that I was working for a local county government in the environmental compliance department that handled drainage and floodplain enforcement in 2023. I received a complaint from a homeowner, Tom, really decent fellow, who lived next door to a house that was part of an incorporated village. Mr. Peterson, not so decent. Tom lived in an unincorporated portion of the county, hence the call to me as an agent of the county. When I drove out to investigate, Tom greeted me at his driveway. "Thanks for coming out. It's been getting worse with every rainfall," he said, pointing to the obvious water damage on his property. I discovered some concerning details. The permitting agent for the village had allowed Peterson to raise his lot with fill dirt, which was now causing Tom's property to flood whenever there was more than a light rain. During our conversation, Tom mentioned there was tension between him and Peterson, partly because Tom and his husband had recently moved to the neighborhood. This raised a red flag for me, but trying to remain impartial, I documented everything and took photos for the file. "I'll contact the village and see what we can do to resolve this," I told Tom. I wrote a letter and called the village inspector, Richardson, to discuss. The conversation went downhill fast. "Listen here," Richardson barked through the phone. "The village can do whatever it wants. You have no authority here." Then he added something that really got under my skin. "Besides, those people are just trying to cause trouble in our nice neighborhood." I sat up straighter in my chair. "Those people? Could you clarify what you mean by that?" Richardson's response made it clear. This was now personal. "If there's one thing I can't stand, it's discrimination masked as bureaucracy." I returned to the site and informed Tom about my intentions. "I'm going to make sure everything here is completely by the book," I assured him. While taking measurements, Peterson stormed out of his house. "What do you think you're doing? This is village property. You have no jurisdiction here." "Actually," I replied calmly, pulling out my two-way radio, "since there's a regulatory floodplain on your lot, I have every right to be here. Let's get both village and county police here to confirm that." When both police units arrived, they were visibly annoyed at being called out. "Sir," the county officer said to Peterson, "this inspector is well within their authority." Richardson showed up minutes later, red-faced and hostile. "You're harassing our residents. I'm calling your supervisor." "Please do," I responded, continuing to mark the floodplain boundaries with bright orange chalk. "Make sure to reference codes 7.2 and 8.4 when you file your complaint." Richardson stepped forward to block my path and got chalk on his shoe. This led to more yelling about property damage, though the chalk would wash off with the next rain. My investigation revealed two major violations: unauthorized fill in the floodplain and a garden shed built on that fill. Both violated federal regulations. The resolution had two parts. Peterson needed to remove the fill and shed from the floodplain, and Tom could add fill to his lot outside the floodplain to balance the drainage. "You might want to consider installing a drainage tile along your property line," I suggested to Tom. "It'll help with any future water issues." The inevitable meeting at the county office with Peterson, Richardson, and my supervisor went exactly as expected. "This is a clear abuse of power," Richardson shouted, pounding the table. Our department head, Miss Martinez, stepped in. "Gentlemen, you can either comply with federal regulations or face substantial fines. Your choice." The best part? Peterson had to apply for a new permit, which landed on my desk for review. While I followed all regulations strictly, everyone knows government workers are overworked and underpaid. Somehow, Tom's permit sailed through while Peterson's required multiple reviews for technical accuracy. "Sorry, Mr. Peterson," I'd say each time, "but Section 4.3 requires exact measurements, and these are off by half an inch." After 3 rejected applications, Peterson finally got it right. Had he come to the office for guidance like most people do, I would have helped him get it right the first time. But he chose the difficult path, so I ensured every measurement and detail was perfect before approval. The situation eventually got resolved, but it took far longer than necessary. Moral of the story: don't be an entitled homophobic jerk when dealing with government employees. The next one is an entitled people's story. Let me tell you about how my dream home renovation project turned into an 8-month nightmare thanks to a power-tripping homeowner association that didn't even have authority over my property. This whole mess started last spring when I finally saved up enough to add a second story to my modest ranch-style house. I'd bought this place 5 years ago, a simple 1960s single-story home on a decent-sized lot just outside of Portland. The previous owner had passed away and their kids just wanted to sell quickly, so I got a good deal. The house sat on the border between two neighborhoods, literally right on the line where the fancy Hampton Heights subdivision ended and my more modest working-class area began. The first sign of trouble came when I submitted my building permits to the city. Everything was properly documented. Architectural plans, engineering reports, the works. I'd spent months working with an architect to design a beautiful craftsman-style second story that would blend perfectly with the neighborhood while giving me the extra space I desperately needed. 2 days after submitting my permits, I got an angry phone call from someone named Karen Johnson, who introduced herself as the president of the Hampton Heights Homeowners Association. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm calling about the completely unauthorized construction plans you've submitted," she said in a clipped tone. "As you know, all external modifications must be approved by the Homeowner Association Architectural Review Board before any permits can be submitted." I was confused. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake. My house isn't part of Hampton Heights or any homeowner association." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "Of course you are. Your property is right here on Maple Drive." "Yes, but I'm at 1225 Maple Drive. The Hampton Heights subdivision starts at 1230. I'm on the other side of the old property line." "Well, that's simply not correct. I have the homeowner association maps right here in front of me. Your lot is clearly within our boundaries. I've already contacted the city to have your permits canceled until you follow proper procedures." My blood started boiling. "Ma'am, I did my due diligence when I bought this house. I have the original plat maps and property records. This lot has never been part of Hampton Heights. You have no authority here." "We'll see about that," she said coldly before hanging up. Sure enough, the next day I got a notice from the city that my permits were being placed on hold pending resolution of homeowner association jurisdiction dispute. I immediately called my real estate attorney, Jim Martinez, who had handled my closing when I bought the place. "Jim, you're not going to believe this." I explained the situation. He sighed. "Unfortunately, I can believe it. Hampton Heights Homeowner Association has tried to pull this before with properties along their borders. They try to gradually expand their territory by intimidating homeowners into thinking they're subject to homeowner association rules. Let me pull your files and we'll get this sorted out." That's when things started getting interesting. Jim sent a formal letter to both the homeowner association and the city documenting that my property was definitively outside homeowner association boundaries, including historical plat maps and property records going back to the 1950s. He demanded they immediately withdraw their baseless objection to my permits. Instead of backing down, Karen and her homeowner association board doubled down. They sent a 20-page response claiming that because my driveway connected to a Hampton Heights street, I was automatically subject to their jurisdiction. They also argued that my proposed renovation would damage neighborhood character and reduce property values. "This is complete nonsense," Jim told me. "Their jurisdiction claims have no legal basis whatsoever, and they have zero authority to block properly permitted construction on your private property. Time to play hardball." He filed an emergency injunction against the homeowner association to prevent them from further interfering with my permits. We also sent a formal complaint to the city documenting the homeowner association's pattern of harassment and baseless claims of authority. That's when Karen showed up at my door one Saturday morning with 2 other homeowner association board members in tow. "Mr. Mitchell, we're here to discuss a reasonable compromise," she said with a tight smile. "If you'll just agree to join the homeowner association and modify your plans to meet our architectural standards, we can put this unpleasantness behind us." I held up my phone, which was recording. "This conversation is being documented. Please leave my property immediately. Any further communication needs to go through my attorney." "Now see here," started one of her cronies, a red-faced man in a golf shirt. "We're trying to be reasonable." "You're trespassing," I interrupted. "Leave now or I'm calling the police." They left, but not before Karen turned back to say, "You're making a big mistake. We have ways of dealing with difficult people." The next week, my car was keyed in my driveway. Then someone scattered nails across my front yard. Neighborhood kids started avoiding my house, and I overheard whispers about how I was causing trouble. I installed security cameras and documented everything. Jim added harassment and intimidation to our growing legal complaint against the homeowner association. The city initially tried to stay neutral, but Jim's persistent legal pressure finally forced them to take a position. Their legal department reviewed all the documentation and concluded that yes, my property was absolutely outside homeowner association jurisdiction. My permits were reissued and construction could proceed. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The day my contractors showed up to start work, they found their access blocked by 3 cars parked across my driveway. all belonging to homeowner association board members who claimed to be having car trouble. When the police arrived, they mysteriously got their cars running again and left. The next day, Karen filed a noise complaint with the city about construction activity. The day after that, she called in a complaint about unsafe working conditions. Each complaint required an inspection and temporary work stoppage while it was investigated. Each complaint was found to be baseless. This pattern continued for weeks. Every possible delay tactic and frivolous complaint was deployed. My contractors were getting frustrated and my construction costs were mounting due to all the delays. "Time to end this," Jim said after the latest round of harassment. "We're filing suit for tortious interference and abuse of process. We'll also seek damages for all the added costs and delays." He filed a comprehensive lawsuit documenting every instance of harassment and interference, complete with security camera footage, recorded conversations, and detailed financial impacts. The total damages claimed came to over $100,000. That finally got the Homeowner Association Board's attention. Their lawyer contacted Jim to discuss settlement options. "They're offering to withdraw all objections and pay your documented delay costs if you'll drop the lawsuit," Jim told me. "Not good enough," I replied. "I want written acknowledgement that they have zero authority over my property, plus damages. Plus, they all have to step down from the board." "They won't like that last part," Jim warned. "Not my problem. They've made my life hell for months. Time to pay the piper." The negotiations dragged on for several more weeks, but the homeowner association's position was weakening. Other homeowners in Hampton Heights had gotten wind of the situation and were asking uncomfortable questions about legal fees and potential assessment increases to cover lawsuit damages. Finally, facing mounting pressure from their own members, the Homeowner Association Board caved. They signed a comprehensive settlement agreement that explicitly acknowledged my property was outside their jurisdiction, paid $75,000 in damages and legal fees, required all current board members to resign, included a permanent injunction against interfering with my property. Karen and her cronies were forced to step down in disgrace. The new Homeowner Association Board sent a formal apology letter to all residents explaining the situation and promising better oversight of homeowner association activities. My renovation proceeded without further incident. The new second story looked beautiful, a perfect blend of classic craftsman style with modern amenities. Several Hampton Heights residents even complimented the design and workmanship. The best part, every time I look at my expanded home, I'm reminded that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even if they hide behind official-sounding titles and regulations. The Homeowner Association learned an expensive lesson about the limits of their authority and the consequences of harassment. Epilog. 6 months after everything was finished, I hosted a big neighborhood BBQ in my new backyard. Lots of Hampton Heights residents came, eager to see the renovation they'd heard so much about. Karen drove past slowly during the party, glaring at the gathering. I just smiled and waved. The next week, a for sale sign appeared in front of her house. Sometimes karma works in obvious ways. I heard through the grapevine that the Homeowner Association's insurance rates doubled after this incident, and they had to implement new policies requiring legal review before taking any action against non-member properties. Several other homeowner associations in the area apparently used my case as a cautionary tale in their board training. The total renovation cost more and took longer than planned due to all the delays, but the settlement money helped offset that. More importantly, I proved that homeowners can successfully stand up to homeowner association overreach if they document everything and get proper legal representation. My advice to anyone facing similar homeowner association harassment: know your rights, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight back. These organizations often rely on intimidation because they know their actual legal authority is limited. Sometimes you have to remind them of those limits the hard way. The renovation has been complete for over a year now, and my home value has increased significantly. Ironically, probably helping Hampton Heights property values too, though I doubt they'll ever admit it. I've had zero issues with the new Homeowner Association Board, who go out of their way to be professional and respect property boundaries. Jim still uses my case as an example when advising other clients dealing with homeowner association disputes. He says the detailed documentation and security camera footage were key to our success. Most homeowner associations back down quick when they realize they're being recorded and everything will be admissible in court, he tells people. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about standing up for what's right, even when facing organized opposition. It would have been easier to give in to their demands, but that would have just encouraged more overreach, affecting other homeowners down the line. These days, my home is exactly what I dreamed it would be: spacious, beautiful, and most importantly, free from homeowner association control. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well in a house they tried and failed to prevent you from building. The next one is a petty revenge story. Every once in a while, I get a text from an unknown number saying something like, "Hey, do you remember me?" I'll reply with, "Who is this? It's Emily, I met you, you forgot me?" One time, the scammer even sent me a picture of a young, pale Asian woman asking me to send them a picture back. I always block and delete, but eventually they text me from a different number. A few weeks ago, I got another scam text. "Hey, how are you? Do you remember me?" I ask, "Who is this?" "It's Amy." I don't respond. 20 minutes later, another text from Amy saying, "I'm meeting up with Tina tomorrow, do you want to come?" I've had enough, so I Google images of the worst hemorrhoids that I can find. I send the image of red, blistered, painful, swollen up close anus to Amy and tell her, "No, sorry, I can't make it tomorrow, I have really painful hemorrhoids." Amy never replied back. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I am a worker bee in a company that got bought out by a much bigger company earlier this year. Even though we were a small company, the teams were flexible and everyone helped each other and the company was profitable. Not to the new ownership though. Apparently our company was crap and needed to be immediately fixed with structure, hierarchy, and order. The managers I've worked so well with over the years are gone. The new owners promised no change, nothing to worry about, everything will be the same. Except that within a month, all the experienced managers who made the workplace so great to work for are let go. What is worse, they've been replaced by emotionless walking husks resembling ghosts, with hammers as their only tool, and we're all nails. Never mind the incessant preaching of company spirit and loyalty and respect and company values. We all moan at these pep talks, we all yawn at the town halls, then the less subtle threats, "Oh, you're not a team player if you don't do X, Y, and Z. You need to work OT or else that's not fair to everyone else. You're leaving on time again?" The culture certainly has changed. For one, I didn't even dare to take off early to pick up my kids from school anymore. Finally, the toxic culture of fear and backstabbing, every word said against the direction, even off the cuff in a chit-chat, and every little facial or nonverbal gesture against the flow are immediately and harshly met with reprimands. For example, another worker bee was recently let go for restructuring, despite stellar work performance. He just couldn't keep his thoughts to himself, I guess. I hope I painted a good picture of what life under the iron fist is like. Many of us are contemplating of leaving, but the job market is quite depressing in our area. The cost of living is high, and we are afraid of being the neck that sticks out, so everyone suffers in silence. The company recently appointed a new CEO who, in his opening introduction to everyone, demanded undivided loyalty to him. It means we must follow his every direction. It means we must smile in his presence and be super upbeat. I think the expectation here is we must cry like North Korean women in the presence of the supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. You want us absolute loyalty? I believe loyalty goes both ways, but we can show you loyalty. We all got the message. You want us to play Oscar-winning actors and actresses instead of actually getting work done and speaking our minds to make the company better? You got it. For those of us who read and trust each other, but we still need to be careful, we would have hours-long meetings with each other on topics that sound important, but don't actually matter. We make sure our days are jammed, packed full of discussions on how to move initiatives forward, but never actually discuss anything of substance, and never have aggressive action items to follow up on. We absolutely never forget to praise the leadership in the meeting minutes. Off the books, though, there's lots of small talks. For the sake of team building, whenever we're questioned by these husks of a ghost, we'd pull out the corporate roadmap and point to the initiatives we've spent so many hours working on. We'd defend our time with the budget that recently got rolled out. Look, we're on side. We've gone so far as requesting additional resources in next year's budget to ensure our very busy initiatives continue to make headway. We're basically creating a public perception of busy without actually doing too much. We were a lean, small company. Now we're a fat busybody where everything is bloated and compartmentalized. We shut our faces and we nodded. We clapped the hardest after every presidential speeches, and we lost money in the last several months. That's the price we pay to give one-sided loyalty. We're still looking for other jobs. The next one is an entitled people's story. I work in a McDonald's in Houston by the 2nd Ward area, where we get a majority of mainly Hispanic customers, along with black customers and some white customers. All of coworkers and all my managers are of Hispanic background, me included. This happened last Friday, and honestly I couldn't tell if the lady was trolling with me or she was being legit. She came in fighting and screaming at someone on the phone, then asked for 2 McGriddles with both bacon and sausage, and her total came out to $12.30. She only gave me $5. I told her the rest was $7.30. She asked around to all the older Hispanic men around to pay for her, and they couldn't understand her or just refused, since it was 6 a.m., and for some reason older men are always up by 5 a.m. She got really mad when no one paid for her, and she came up to my face asking why we, Hispanics, came to America when we don't even like black people, and why even move to a black neighborhood. I was super confused and just told her to not start getting racist at me, and if she was going to pay for her food, but she kept going on about how we take jobs and how we're all racist Mexicans. I am Mexican, but my co-workers were Salvadoran and Honduran. I got mad and told her it wasn't my problem. She didn't have money and was racist, and asked her if she was going to pay or not. She got really mad that I said that and pulled out a bunch of crumpled $1 bills and was like, "Who are you calling broke?" And I told her she's the one telling people to pay for her, and at that point she just started calling me an idiot. My manager came over and told me to go to the back to cool off, but the customer kept talking, and I got so fed up I told her straight to get the duck out, and my manager told me to go to the back. The lady left and came back when my other manager clocked in, and she started going on to my other manager how I called her broke. And when I told my manager what she was saying, she just laughed. All my managers were saying in Spanish that she was a dumbass that needs to leave, and obviously took my side, and even were surprised that I actually got mad. I know I could have handled it better, but it was 6 a.m., I had just clocked in, and I was running on no sleep with a bunch of assignments due. From what I heard, the same lady went to the gas station, which also has Hispanic employees, and picked something with them, but they actually called the police on her. I'm not racist, neither are my managers or co-workers, so I don't know why she started telling us that stuff. I wish I had said more things to her, but at least I said what I did. I told another manager who came later what happened, and she said she was glad I stood up for myself. I'm just honestly confused as to why this even happened and why she was asking people to pay for her if she had the money. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.